Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The small town of Brookfield, nestled between stretches of pine forest and a river that meandered like a quiet whisper, was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's name. All families had lived there for generations, their histories entwined with the rhythms of the seasons and the reliable cadence of small-town life. On any given afternoon, the streets would echo with children's laughter, their beaming faces emerging from the local park, where the sun cast long shadows that danced playfully among the trees. But on the late evening of April 15th, 2021, the tranquility of Brookfield shattered in a way no one could have anticipated. A distressing call came through to the police station, the heart of the town's main street, at the old Cunningham house. A body had been discovered. Detective Clara Mason arrived at the scene shortly after the call, her breath visible in the cool evening air as her boots crunched on gravel. The dilapidated house loomed ahead, its facade heavy with ivy and years of neglect. It appeared abandoned, yet the flickering lights inside hinted at life, momentarily awakened by tragedy. Under the austere glow of the police lights, the house transformed into a somber monument, its age and decay cloaked in an atmosphere thick with uncertainty. The victim, a local teacher named Anna Henderson, had been well known and well-liked, a beacon of light for her students. As Clara approached, she couldn't shake the familiar pang of disbelief that filled these dark moments. Within the walls that once echoed with laughter and lessons learned, nothing, at least for now, felt truly safe. The night unraveled deeper layers of unanswered questions as her colleagues combed through the affordable chaos. Clara understood that in crime, the past was never truly past. In the small town of Brookfield, the consequences of this moment would ripple through their lives in ways they could hardly imagine. The victim, Anna Henderson, had been the soul of Brookfield Middle School. At 34 years old, she was a vibrant tapestry of dedication, creativity, and kindness. With tousled chestnut hair and an infectious laugh, she brightened the lives of her students. Her classroom was a sanctuary of colorful charts, imaginative artwork, and the faint scent of freshly sharpened pencils that seemed to linger long after the bell. As detectives sifted through Anna's life story, they unearthed fragments that painted a fuller picture of the woman lost to the world. Friends disclosed her birthday rituals, where she would bake dozens of cookies to share with local shelters. Colleagues remarked on her tenacity, proving time and again that she would champion her students, often approaching their struggles with the patience of a seasoned saint. Yet, a few whispers of discontent emerged as well conversations about a withdrawn demeanor that had settled over her in recent weeks. Searching her home, Clara and her team began to piece together the aspects of Anna's life that lingered in abandoned corners. A diary rested on the nightstand, the leather cover worn from years of use. Following her intuition, Clara gently opened it, revealing entries that conveyed both dreams and doubts. They spoke of her aspirations to write a novel, but they also revealed strange an anonymous letter that hinted at discontented parents, unresolved conflicts with peers, and loneliness that she hid behind her radiant smile. As Clara examined the contents of the home, she caught sight of framed photographs on the mantel. In many of them, Anna was surrounded by friends and family, flashing carefree smiles. Yet, a sense of isolation loomed behind the joy missing from the revelry, where glimpses of a love life and the void of a partner or husband punctuated every scene. Speculation filled the air as the detectives began to wonder what secrets were buried beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect existence. Each memory uncovered echoed through the room, intensifying the urgency for answers. Who, among those who had been touched by Anna's light, could become the shadow lurking behind her untimely death? The crime scene. The Cunningham house bore the weight of its sorrow as the police tape rippled in the evening breeze, marking the boundaries of a scene that was no longer safe. Clara Mason stood just outside the threshold, her gut churning with the intrusion of violence where once there had been a sanctuary. The air was thick with the scent of damp wood and decay, a pungent reminder of years lost, now marred by tragedy. Inside, evidence markers dotted the once pristine living room like an unsettling constellation. The yellow numbers contrasted starkly against the faded floral wallpaper, now tinged with a patina of neglect. As Clara stepped further into the house, she noticed the overturned furniture, indicating a jagged coffee table, askew, a chair on its side. An unsettling tableau hinting at chaos that disrupted Anna's routine life. The lifeless body lay on the floor amidst the disarray, surrounded by bright scatterings of craft supplies that had tumbled from a nearby shelf-grim juxtaposition of playfulness and despair. Clara knelt beside Anna, taking in the full reality of the scene. The young teacher's face, once full of joy and laughter, was muted in death, the shadows beneath her eyes highlighting a finality that echoed through the room. Forensic specialists worked meticulously, photographing evidence, gathering samples, as Clara took in the minutiae surrounding Anna's final moments. She noted the absence of any signs of forced entry and felt the cold grip of dread settle. This was a crime of passion, not chance. Someone who knew Anna had invaded her space, her sanctuary. Her own eyes were drawn to a writing desk situated against the far wall. Papers were strewn about, hastily abandoned. One particular sheet caught her attention, an unfinished list of names, perhaps a roster of parents or students. A simple note accompanied it, written in Anna's hurried, looping script, detailing thoughts of a meeting regarding student issues. Above several names, an ominous underlined word: concern. The revelation surfacing from the crime scene wrapped around Clara like a shroud, imbued with a heavy sense of urgency. Each clue pulled her deeper into Anna's world, drawing connections to possible motivations and relationships. She understood that what seemed like simple reflections of a teacher's duties might harbor the darker complexities of envy, resentment, and betrayal woven throughout Brookfield. As the night deepened, Clara knew she had to untangle these threads if she was to illuminate the truth behind Anna's death. The early investigation. In the days following Anna Henderson's death, the hushed tones of disbelief reverberated through the tight-knit community of Brookfield. News moved swiftly. A tangled web spun through coffee shop whispers and hushed conversations at the grocery store. Clara Mason stood at the helm of the investigation, her mind racing between the need to comfort a grieving community and the urgency of piecing together a motive. The first order of business was a canvass of witnesses. Clara and her partner, Detective Mark Wu, began with those who had closest connections to Anna. They invited her colleagues for questioning at the station. A quiet room filled with uncertainty and palpable grief. Each interview peeled back layers, revealing glimpses of Anna's life, while revealing the fractures that sometimes marred it. Linda Fletcher, the art teacher, spoke warmly of Anna's way with students, her insistence on nurturing each child's creativity. But as the conversation deepened, Linda hesitated. "There was this parent," she whispered, a glance towards the door sending signals of fear, "who didn't appreciate Anna's methods. It was tense." Detective Wu jotted down the name Brian McAllister against a backdrop of red flags. The notes wore on, detailing longing looks and subtle exchanges during parent-teacher meetings. There was a hushed conversation about a PTA confrontation, with murmurs hinting at Anna's growing reputation for being intransigent about student performance. Clara felt the edges of a potential storm brewing. Each inquiry revealed similar threads of discontent, while Anna's students remembered her fondly but spoke of anxious parents. Their worries echoed during parent conferences where Anna would stand firm. As they dug, Clara learned of another named Maggie Phillips, Anna's closest friend since childhood, whose voice trembled when asked about Anna's life outside the classroom. "I wish I had known," she mentioned, feeling overwhelmed, "but I thought it was just work." Maggie's eyes glimmered with tears that longed to spill, painting a picture of longing and regret. As they proceeded with interviews, Clara noted the growing intensity of the investigation. Each name and story merged into a tapestry of fraught relationships, simmering tensions, and the isolation that had crept into Anna's life. Secrets whispered in shadows weighed heavily upon the soft whispers of Brookfield. Clara felt a looming darkness taking shape from the echoes of Anna's demise, pressing her toward the truth that lay entangled among the lives of those who had crossed paths with this cherished teacher. The dead ends. Days turned into a week, and Clara Mason felt the chill of impatience settle in her bones as she combed through interviews, witness statements, and alibis. The initial rush of information was ebbing. She was fanning out in search of connections, yet each lead she pursued seemed to crumble like ash between her fingers. Clara's first significant focus, Brian McAllister, had proven a frustrating dead end. After a stern interrogation, it became clear he was too detached from reality to harbor resentment. A father who was all bark but no bite, he claimed his resentment toward Anna had dissipated after discussing concerns with the principal. The fallout had settled. To his own admission, weeks before her death. Each alibi checked and validated put him further out of the frame. Next came Maggie Phillips, whose haunting grief did not yield any groundbreaking revelations when Clara pressed her for deeper insights. Eyes wide and glistening, she stammered about their last conversation, where Anna had shared her romantic hope. But that, too, felt like a hollow shell of distraction glossing over the cracks of a life marred by uncertainty, nothing to suggest map. Yet another key avenue, the PTA meetings that had once roiled with tension, had been sterile upon inspection. Attendees, when finally contacted, painted a picture of civility, a well-behaved group of parents who fought only over bake sales and after-school programs, devoid of any real discord. Clara felt her initial instincts about anger festering among the parents begin to evaporate, replaced by an ache of futility as leads turned cold. At the station, days began to meld into late nights, filled with scattered photographs of Anna's interactions, play dates, friendly gatherings, team building at school known of it led to potential suspects or motives. The board dedicated to Anna's case wore the heavy burden of stagnation. Yarn strings connected names and conversations but led nowhere, like the confounding structure of a spider's web without sustenance. Frustration gnawed at Clara as she sat at her desk, the quiet hum of the station enveloping her. The stillness felt oppressive, particularly as the faces of Anna's students blurred with the fatigue of unsolved mystery. In this town frozen in disbelief, Clara knew she couldn't allow the case to fade into a troubled memory. She had to awaken the spirits of curiosity, to leverage the community's concern before the case succumbed to the haunting whispers of unsolved. With resolve sparking within her, Clara decided it was time to shift her focusto, reach out for the untold stories woven into the fabric of Brookfield that might yet bridge her stumbling investigation. A break in the case. As Clara applied her resolve to the stagnant case, she initiated her plan to host a community forum at the local library. The town hall's high wooden ceiling still echoed with anticipation as residents shuffled, filling the rows of worn chairs. Clara stood before the attentive crowd, her heart racing against the backdrop of their expectant faces. She needed to foster an environment where secrets could emerge from the shadows. Anna Henderson mattered to all of us, Clara began, her voice steady but laced with emotion. Her loss affects the fabric of our community. I ask you to come forward with anything you might know, no matter how small it seems. Silence hung in the air, as tense as a spider's web, until a hesitant hand rose at the back of a familiar face. It was Holly, one of Anna's students from the 4th grade, her eyes wide but glinting with courage. Anna told us, she began, her voice a fragile whisper, about someone who made her feel scared. A man, but I don't know who. Shuffling stirred in the room as murmurs spread like wildfire. Clara leaned forward. The flicker of hope ignited anew in her gut. Can you tell me more about this man? Holly's brow furrowed in concentration, her small hands clenched together. When Anna was driving home one day, she told us there was a man who would stare at her from the car next to hers. She didn't want to tell anyone because she thought people wouldn't believe her. She was worried. I remember because she was so upset. Butterflies took flight in Clara's stomach, her instincts sharpening. This was the first tangible detail that signaled a shift. It felt connected and real. Did she tell you any more about it? Clara pressed gently, leaning into the moment. The girl's lower lip trembled as she summoned up scattered memories. Just that she felt followed and she thought he might live in our town, but she didn't know for sure. After the forum concluded, Clara immersed herself in the search for this potential lead. She gathered surveillance footage from the streets surrounding Anna's route to work, focusing on the road near the school, where cars lined like perennial sentinels. Days of painstaking analysis revealed a gray sedan, a distinctive feature among the tidal wave of vehicles. It was always parked under the old oak tree, a shadow lurking against the sun-kissed sidewalk. Within a couple of hours, Clara had acquired a license plate number. As she pulled up the registration details, tension coiled within her. A name floated to the surface, mark Redding. Her heart raced at the sight of the case pinned beside his record, a history of stalking and public disturbance that flared brightly against the white page. Clara felt the energy of the investigation shift once more. The pieces were finally threading together with urgency, pulling her toward a new focal point. Nothing filled the void of grief. but this discovery was a beacon illuminating the surrounding darkness. It was time to unearth who Mark Redding was in relation to Anna Henderson. And Clara knew every tick of the clock would count as she sought a deeper understanding of the menace drawn into the fabric of their lives. The suspect. Clara Mason stood before the steady hum of the police precinct, her mind racing with anticipation and uncertainty. The name Mark Redding now loomed large on her mental landscape, a specter linked to Anna's untimely death. With only a whisper of a clue to tether her thoughts, she needed to gather more than just the old police report to truly understand the darkness simmering beneath his calm exterior. They pulled Redding's file, combing through every detail diligently. His previous infractions included not just stalking, but unwelcome contact with multiple women and volatile encounters with authorities that revealed a deeply rooted history of erratic behavior. The last entry in the file was a year old, indicating he had skirted his latest legal admonition. The breath Clara held trailed into a long exhale of frustration. He had seemingly slipped through the cracks, unaccounted for in the safety net of Brookfield. As she scheduled a visit to Redding's last known address, an unassuming apartment complex on the fringes of town, Clara felt a mixture of resolve and trepidation knot in her stomach. Accompanied by Detective Wu, they approached the faded beige building, observing the flickering overhead lights that painted moodily across cracked pavement. As they ascended the stairs to his second-floor apartment, Clara could feel each creak beneath their feet, melding the past with a foreboding present. They knocked, the sound echoing loudly in the stagnant hallway. Silence followed. Stretching into an uncomfortable eternity before a tired voice answered, muffled and hesitant. "Who is it?" "Detectives Mason and Wu. We'd like to speak with you about Anna Henderson." Clara's voice was firm, though her heart drummed a frantic rhythm as it became clear Redding was home. A moment passed, and the door creaked open slowly, revealing Mark Redding, a man in his late 30s with unkempt hair and a distracted gaze. His frame was imposing, and the weariness in his eyes hinted at restlessness lurking within. Clara couldn't ignore the slight twinge of alarm. Instinct told her this man was capable of far more than mere transient discomfort. "We have a few questions regarding Anna's passing," Wu stated firmly, taking charge. Redding's face fell, flitting through emotions in the blink of an e-confusion. Then, calculation. Anna, she was a good teacher. "Hardly knew her, eh?" he stammered. But Clara noticed the edges of his voice righted themselves, hardened into something defensive. "We've heard otherwise," Clara interjected, her tone steady as she assessed his reactions. "You've had past interactions with her. There's something insidious in how you express your disconnection. Were you aware of her concerns about feeling followed?" Discomfort sagged into the atmosphere, the silence filling the room thick like smoke. Redding shifted, and a twinge of unease sparked in Clara's chest. "Little nonsense, he retorted too quickly, his hands clenching at his sides. Clara noted how his bravado began to crack, revealing a flicker of something darker. As they pressed him for more details, each question lit mismatched embers, until Redding's defensiveness erupted into anger. "Leave me alone. Leave me alone," he shouted, slamming the door before they could react. the sound reverberating like a gunshot in the narrow hall. In stunned silence, Clara and Wu shared a look. The way Redding had reacted revealed more than just irritation. Something beneath the surface was raw and uncontained. With no time to spare, they moved quickly to solidify potential evidence against him, comparing statements from Anna's friends and piecing together his presence on the day of her death, with an array of subconscious leads now converging into a single narrative. Clara sensed they were inching ever closer to uncovering the truth hidden beneath layers of complicity and fear. A dark truth that would unveil the heart of Anna's final moments. They knew they had not only a suspect, but the thread to unravel a case fraught with layers, each needing to be meticulously dissected before the town could find peace once more. The trial. The atmosphere in the small courtroom was electric, charged with tension as the community of Brookfield packed the benches. Their eyes trained on the front, where Mark Redding sat, a figure both familiar and menacing. Clara Mason felt the gravity of the moment settle deep in her chest as she surveyed the room, taking in Anna Henderson's friends and family, their faces etched with a mix of hope and heartache. After weeks of evidence gathering and meticulous preparation, the trial had finally arrived. Clara had spent countless hours supporting the prosecution, brushing through the intricate web of details connecting Redding to Anna's tragic death. Each piece unfurled in court like a delicate flower, each petal revealing a truth that the town desperately needed to face. Witness after witness took the stand, recounting their experiences with Anna, her warmth and kindness juxtaposed against the encroaching darkness of fear she had felt from Redding's stalking behaviors. The young girl, Holly, who had remarkably spoken at the community forum, now stood again under the stark glare of the courtroom lights. With a courage that belied her age, she detailed Anna's fears as she handed over the life-altering details that had sparked this investigation into motion. The prosecution presented surveillance footage showing Redding's gray sedan lingering near Anna's home and school. The detectives laid bare the timeline of his behavior. Various women had come forward, linking his name with a history of obsession. Clara watched Redding closely, noticing the proud facade wrinkle with discomfort as the pieces assembled into damning conclusions. As the defense mounted its argument, Redding's lawyer attempted to quash the damning evidence, suggesting that Anna's anxieties were unfounded, a result of her own paranoia. The room rippled with murmurs. Clara could see Anna's family stiffen at the insinuation, the deep anguish translating into a palpable presence. A pivotal moment arose when Clara was called to the stand. The weight of the room surged as she recounted her investigation, the discovery of Redding's prior offenses, the connections he'd painstakingly made, and the fear that crept from witness accounts. With each word, she painted a vivid narrative that echoed louder than any official charge. Anna was not just a victim. She was a life thwarted, stolen from her students, friends, and community. In the final moments, as the jury filed out to deliberate, the tension was suffocating. Clara felt her heart race, become a delicate balance swaying in favor of justice or injustice. Outside the courtroom, members of the community whispered anxiously, their faces reflecting a mosaic of uncertainty and hope. When the jury returned, the foreperson stood, voice steady as they announced, "We find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder." The sound of the verdict echoed through the room, and a wave of emotion rolled through the gathered crowd. Tears streamed down Anna's friends' faces, relief mingling with pain. Clara felt a rush of triumph, but it was tinged with the lingering sorrow of a life lost. As the judge pronounced Redding's sentence, the echoes of the courtroom swelled around Clara. The chilling weight of closure settled as the gavel struck down. But it was the knowledge that Anna's story, marked by joy and tragedy, would resonate within the community long after this day. In that fleeting moment, Clara understood that justice might not erase the sorrow, but it could heal the fractures that threatened to tear their small town apart. Anna's memory would continue to shine, a guiding light piercing through the shadows of despair. The aftermath. The weeks following the trial were a kaleidoscope of emotions in Brookfield. The verdict had finally come, yet the scars of loss were visibly etched on the faces of many. Clara Mason found herself oscillating between the triumph of justice served and the poignant reality of what had been irrevocably taken from the community. Anna Henderson's presence was still palpably felt, her legacy woven into the fabric of everyday life. The school honored her memory with a memorial garden, a blaze of colors where children could come to learn, reflect, and remember the woman who had inspired them. Clara attended the dedication ceremony, witnessing the community come together, their grief mixing with moments of laughter and camaraderie, a bittersweet tribute to a beloved figure who had once filled this world with light. Standing amidst flowers, Clara observed the blossoming of hope through Anna's students, new generations who would carry forward the ideals she cherished. The students, clad in bright t-shirts emblazoned with the words "in memory of Mrs. H," sang songs of remembrance under the sunlit sky. Choking back tears, Clara joined in, the weight of nostalgia fusing with the promise of renewal. Though justice had been served, the shadows of Anna's death cast a long shadow over Clara's thoughts. She had immersed herself in her work, yet each case following Anna's bore the weight of their intersecting realities. Striking a delicate balance between the demands of her role and her emotional health became increasingly complex. The town itself felt different, a community deeply aware of its fragility. Conversations around town shifted as parents became more vigilant, echoing the same anxieties that had once plagued Anna. Clara often found herself speaking at PTA meetings, presenting at community gatherings, urging parents to talk openly with their children about safety, mental health, and the signs of distress. In the depths of late nights, when shadows pooled in corners and whispers of grief lingered in her mind, Clara turned to pen and paper, chronicling what she felt in an ever-deepening desire to honor Anna. With time, she felt compelled to share Anna's narrative not as just another district tragedy, but as a testament to resilience and the necessity of community bond. Months passed, and the anniversary of Anna's death approached, heralding a memorial event that marked both remembrance and purpose. Clara had teamed up with Anna's closest friends and family, advocates for awareness, to create a scholarship fund in Anna's name, focused on providing opportunities for students pursuing careers in education and the arts. It represented a hopeful beacon amidst the somberness surrounding loss. At the ceremony, with a gathered crowd, Clara spoke with a fiery conviction, eyes glistening as she relayed Anna's passion for teaching. The stories rivaled the tears shed, fueling renewed determination to transform a tragedy into a legacy of love committed to fostering courage in the hearts of emerging educators. And as the sun slid towards the horizon, a warm breeze caressed the gathering, a whisper of Anna's spirit enveloping. Clara looked out at the faces before her filled with hope, determination, and a yearning to channel their grief into something meaningful. It was a moment steeped in authenticity. From the depths of despair had arisen a renewed commitment within Brookfield, a community that understood the fragility of life yet remained resolute in seeking the light. In the end, Clara realized that Anna would forever be woven into the very fabric of Brookfield, her legacy an enduring reminder of the power of love, compassion, and the relentless pursuit against the shadows of harm. Reflection. As Clara Mason stood at the edge of Anna's memorial garden, she allowed herself a moment to breathe in the fragrances of blooming flowers and freshly turned earth. Spring had arrived in Brookfield, painting the world anew, and the warmth of the sun promised new beginnings. Yet within her, a storm of thoughts brewed, each wave reflecting the complexities of the past year. With Anna's story at the forefront of her mind, Clara pondered the lessons woven through love, loss, and resilience. The line between fear and hope blurred as she reflected on the community, forging a path forward, a path that demanded vigilance, empathy, and understanding. Clara recognized now more than ever the weight of her responsibility to advocate for those who felt silenced. The months spent investigating Anna's murder had revealed not just the evil lurking within, but also the beauty in a community that dared to unite in mourning and remembrance. Clara had witnessed fragility transform into fortitude, darkness intertwining with light, weaving a narrative rich with purpose. Each face that she encountered in town reflected a story of their own stories of struggle, redemption, and the ever-present search for safety. She often thought of Holly, the brave young girl whose words incited clarity within the storm of confusion. Children were often seen as the future, but they were also watchful observers of the world around them, processing experiences through honest lens. Clara hoped to instill within them the courage to speak up and seek help, to shine light in the shadows of fear. As she turned to leave the garden, Clara felt Anna's spirit envelop her, a gentle reminder of the resilience that thrived in love's wake. The path ahead might be wrought with challenges, but together, Brookfield was learning to rise, determined to bear witness to the lost yet honor her memory with every choice made in the name of hope.